A single video shot on a cell phone has triggered a political and law enforcement firestorm in Minnesota. Empty rooms, locked doors, and millions of taxpayer dollars tied to childcare centers that appear barely operational. As the footage spreads online, pressure is mounting on Governor Tim Walz. Critics say the warnings were there, the money flowed anyway, and now the questions are getting louder. A 42-minute video uploaded online last week has detonated across social media, triggering a firestorm of outrage and renewed scrutiny over Minnesota's handling of billions in social service funds. Independent journalist Nick Shirley's investigation takes viewers inside multiple childcare centers accused of siphoning millions in public money, casting a harsh spotlight on alleged failures in oversight, accountability, and the safeguarding of taxpayer dollars. In one case, a Minneapolis facility reportedly funded for nearly 100 children appears largely inactive. The sign outside is misspelled. Inside, little movement. To critics, the images raise a simple but explosive question: where did the money go? Governor Tim Walz's office is now pushing back hard. A spokesperson says the governor has spent years cracking down on fraud, strengthening oversight, and requesting expanded authority from the legislature. The administration points to audits of high-risk programs, the shutdown of the Housing Stabilization Services Program, new oversight leadership, and criminal prosecutions already underway. One of the facilities highlighted in the video, officials say, was already closed. But the response has not stopped the backlash. Shirley says the alleged fraud is so obvious a kindergartner could spot it. He argues fear of political labels has discouraged deeper scrutiny. The video has drawn reactions from Vice President J.D. Vance, Republican lawmakers, Donald Trump Jr., and Elon Musk. The White House re-shared criticism, calling the situation a breathtaking failure. Now, federal authorities are escalating their involvement. FBI Director Kash Patel confirms the Bureau has surged personnel and investigative resources into Minnesota, saying the case represents the tip of a very large iceberg. The agency is focusing on large-scale fraud, exploiting federal programs, with a particular emphasis on pandemic-era aid and social services funding.
A massive fraud case, once dismissed as pandemic chaos, is now being treated as something far bigger. The FBI is surging resources into Minnesota, warning that hundreds of millions stolen may be just the surface. At the center, federal programs meant to feed children. And a growing question: how deep does this really go? The FBI is escalating its investigation into Minnesota after uncovering one of the largest pandemic-era fraud schemes in U.S. history. According to FBI Director Kash Patel, the Bureau has quietly surged additional agents and investigative resources into the state, well before public attention intensified online. The focus: dismantling large-scale fraud rings exploiting federal aid programs. The FBI believes this is just the tip of a very large iceberg. We will continue to follow the money and protect children, and this investigation very much remains ongoing. Furthermore, many are also being referred to immigration officials for possible further denaturalization and deportation proceedings where eligible. At the center of the probe is the Feeding Our Future case, a scheme that siphoned roughly $250 million in federal food assistance intended for children during the COVID-19 pandemic. Investigators say nonprofit organizations billed the government for meals that were never served. To date, the case has resulted in 78 indictments and 57 convictions, with prosecutors signaling the investigation is far from over. Federal prosecutors have also charged individuals in a separate plot involving an alleged $120,000 cash bribe aimed at influencing a juror connected to the case. According to Patel, the FBI continues to trace money flows and expand the scope of the probe. This is just the tip of a very large iceberg, Patel said, adding that more accountability is coming. The investigation now extends beyond criminal charges. Patel confirmed that some individuals connected to the fraud are being referred to immigration authorities for possible denaturalization and deportation proceedings where legally applicable. The Bureau says its focus remains on protecting children and safeguarding federal programs from abuse. Public scrutiny intensified after a viral video posted by independent journalist Nick Shirley highlighted alleged fraud involving Minnesota childcare and learning centers. The footage showed multiple facilities appearing non-operational, despite records indicating they received millions in government aid. The video quickly spread across social media, triggering renewed outrage.
Hello, we'd like to ask where the money's going. What do you guys think about the fraud that's taking place here in Minnesota?
I don't think anybody is enabling fraud to happen.
Hold Governor Walz accountable for this.
What was this money spent on? 1.26 million. What was that money spent on? There aren't any kids.
Answer the question, are there children? There's no children inside this building.
Potentially the largest fraud scandal in U.S. history is taking place in Minnesota, as literally billions of dollars have been funneled through Somali-ran fraudulent businesses. So much fraud, it could actually almost replace the entire GDP of Somalia. These fraudsters have worked hand in hand with the Minnesota government as they enabled billions of dollars to be given to fraudulent businesses underneath welfare purposes. Some of this money eventually landed in the hands of terrorist groups in Somalia like the Al-Shabaab, and others enriched themselves all at the US taxpayers' expense. And in this video we will break down all of the fraud from start to finish, from going to the fraudulent businesses and confronting the people who are making millions of dollars from the government. And we will also be confronting the incompetent government leaders who let this fraud happen. And to make this happen, I met up with a man who's been doing his own investigation for years now, as he has seen the fraud firsthand. His name is David. Let's get into this and be prepared to be shocked. How deep is this fraud here inside of Minnesota?
It is far worse than anybody can imagine. You heard it's 7 to 10 billion and maybe more, and now the numbers have been revised and put out there publicly that they think it's more like 8 billion. How I got involved is that where my office is here in Minneapolis, I'm sort of in the heart of all of this fraud, and I would see these childcare centers. I said, well, there aren't any kids there. It's the middle of the day, and all I see are a couple of guys standing out front smoking. And then I'd go by another daycare and I'd see the same thing. I said, well, where do these kids play? And so I started to go online and look, and I said, this place is licensed for 80 children. They had 0 children. Every time I went by there, they never had a single child there. Then I started to see all these transportation companies going around, and it was always a Somali driver. And I said, well, that's great. They're out there transportation, contributing, but they never had a passenger, never, ever once. And I said, well, what is all this transportation? What are they doing? So then I found out that in Minnesota, they have something called non-emergency medical transportation. So this is going to the dentist's office, therapy, whatever it might be. And I said, well, how many of these companies are there? And the research came back that there are 1,020 of them, and more than 800 of them are Somali-owned. Nobody from the state of Minnesota ever cross-checks to see if any rides were ever actually provided. All they did was write the check.
Republican lawmakers, including House Majority Whip Tom Emmer and Representative Mike Lawler, responded forcefully. Emmer accused Minnesota Governor Tim Walz of sitting idly by while billions were stolen from hard-working Minnesotans. Vice President J.D. Vance also weighed in, amplifying calls for accountability. The controversy follows earlier accusations by a group of Minnesota state employees who say they warned officials about widespread fraud, only to face retaliation. An online group claiming to represent more than 480 state staff members alleges Governor Walz ignored fraud alerts, discredited reports, and weakened oversight mechanisms meant to stop abuse. Governor Walz has publicly condemned the fraud, calling it an attack on public trust and on programs meant to improve lives. If you're committing fraud, no matter who you are going to jail, Walz said during a November press conference. Still, critics argue the damage is already done.